Good afternoon. This is Theo with Performance Solutions by Design, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I need to make sure that everybody can hear me. We've only got two people on the session, so if you'll unmute yourself, I'd appreciate that. Since it's only two of us, then what we'll probably do is really make this interactive, so that'll be a lot of fun. Great. George, I see you're unmuted. Thank you. And Karen, are you on the line? I can't tell if Karen is on. All right. George, good afternoon. How are you today?
Good, and yourself?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for being on this session. All right, I see Karen raised her hand, so she's here, so that's great. Thank you so much for being a part of this session. It's really exciting to have people that are interested in learning about this topic, getting to 90% customer satisfaction, how to achieve it, and how to sustain it. I'm probably going to take about 30 minutes of content, but since we have such a small group, I want to make room to answer any questions that you might have concerning this and so on. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the content. And also, just so you'll know, I've been using Zoom for quite a while. I've shifted back to GoToWebinar, haven't used it in a minute. It had a couple of additional features that I thought would be effective for this. So I'm using this also. But if you have any questions, just unmute yourself, ask a question. This is the 10th webinar that I've done. I've done quite a few for private organizations, and then this is the first public one. So yay, thank you so much. We're talking about getting to 90%. And the purpose of this webinar or this presentation today is really to engage you around a lively discussion of what it takes to achieve and sustain being the operative word, 90% or higher customer satisfaction. I'd like to also just educate you on some of the things that I've learned. I think that what you'll find is that some of this may be stuff that you have learned along the way, and it may validate some things that you're already doing. You may find a couple of best practices that may be suited to you. So that's kind of like the purpose, and hopefully to inspire sustainable change. Here are the things that I'd like to cover. I always like to include a couple of key statistics because in every session, you have some people that are left brain thinkers, some people are right brain thinkers. For those of us that are left brained, I'm included in that. We always need facts, figures, statistics to substantiate whatever a person's talking about as proof. So I'll give some interesting statistics around the customer experience. I'd also like to talk about 4 common challenges that leaders face in trying to achieve 90% or higher customer satisfaction. What are some of the benefits of achieving this? You may already be there. You may be close. I can also share what doesn't work, what does work. I'd like to open up the session for some questions. You can jot them down at any time, unmute yourself and ask a question because, like I said, we're a small group. And I'd also like to share some client success stories. And at the end of the session, what I'll do is I'll make sure that I send everyone a copy of the PowerPoint presentation in the form of an ebook so that if this is some information or content that you're interested in keeping, you'll have that. And then just information on if you want to talk further after this session, how to reach me and so on. So that's kind of what I'd like to achieve today. George, I'm not familiar with you, so it's a pleasure to get to meet you. I know Karen very well, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. Then I'm going to ask you to tell me a little bit about you, just so I'll get to know you. My name is Theo Gilbert-Jamison. My company is Performance Solutions by Design. We've been around for 17 years. We help organizations create and sustain a culture of service excellence, and we've been focused on helping clients and customers achieve 90% or higher satisfaction for the last 17 years. Prior to that, I worked for the Ritz-Carlton organization, started as a secretary in human resources back in the early 80s, did every role in HR, learning and development, and quality improvement. And when I left, my last 3 years with Ritz-Carlton, I was vice president of learning and development worldwide. But since then, I've gone on to work with a number of really, as a consultant, a number of really highly recognized organizations that, just like Ritz-Carlton, want to continue to raise the bar and continue to be benchmarks in their industry. I've written a lot of books, and my focus typically is around leadership effectiveness, self-accountability, service excellence, and service recovery. And I work across a lot of industries, get to travel a lot with the exception of COVID this year. So just had a lot of great things going on prior to that, but good things still going on. We're still healthy, so that's a good thing. So George, if you don't mind, tell me who you work with, what you do, and if you can share for your company, where are you all when it comes to customer sat scores?
Oh, hi, Theo. Yeah, George Richardson. I'm actually currently in between positions right now, Theo.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been following you on LinkedIn and saw that this was coming up, so I signed up for it. I'm trying to attend something like this every week from different people.
Yeah.
And I'm actually familiar with you from my previous job. You were actually there doing service excellence about 5 or 6 years ago at V&A Care
Oh,
up in Massachusetts.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was able to hear you give the employee one. I unfortunately had some stuff going on in my own personal life at the time that I actually missed the management portion of it. So I'm hoping to get some more out of this from back when we did all that then. So
All right. Well, George, thank you so
that's where
much
I'm
for
in.
the support. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you. And Karen, if you don't mind, can you unmute yourself and just kind of tell us a little bit about what you're doing, what made you interested?
Okay, great. Hi, Theo. It's great to see you again. And I am Karen Sutherland. I am a training consultant. I live in the Bahamas. And I met Theo quite some time ago, and she's had some opportunity to work with me and my team when I was working at the Atlantis Resort. And now, as an independent consultant, I'm working for several companies in the Bahamas, and customer service is at the forefront of what they are trying to achieve. I am currently contracted to the cable company here, and certainly the customer experience is really the total focus of everything in terms of purpose, the total purpose of every single thing that we do there. Our numbers, we do NPS, so we do an NPS score that we are trying to achieve. And if I had to equate it to percentages, I would say that we might be maybe at right now about a 75, 80%.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So it's great. And thank you for the support of both of you being on this session. You know, I am always, just like you all probably are, I'm always doing all types of little research and so on who's doing what as it relates to customer experience work. And what I've found just recently is that globally, most companies are somewhere around 83% when it comes to customer satisfaction. So, 90% is kind of that sweet spot where you become an industry benchmark between 90 and 95%. And it is achievable, but it takes, as you know, Karen, and probably you too, George, it takes a lot of focus and having the right people, right processes in place. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to just share, you've probably seen these statistics before. If I'm looking down at my notes. So please forgive me for that. But feeling unappreciated is the number one reason why most customers leave a product or service and go elsewhere for that product or service. We've all been there before. Another interesting one that I like to share a lot is that just after one negative experience, 51% of customers will never utilize that product or service again. We're all there. This is from IBM. My statistics that I have quoted for many years is a little bit higher, but they're saying that 77% of customers will recommend a friend after having a positive service experience, and 69% will shop more with a company after, that will shop more, with companies that offer consistent customer service in person and also online. Another reason to focus on trying to get to 90% is that when it comes to employee engagement, if you've got the right strategy that incorporates that, you'll see employee engagement rates also increase by 20%. And that also includes employee retention. But why is it important for companies to focus on raising the bar and elevating the experience, trying to get to that elusive 90%? Because if you're able to do that, profitability will rise. For an organization that's even at 80%, if they're able to bring that up 10 percentage points to 90%, as the statistics show, they could have an increase in profitability of anywhere from 25 to 95%. That's a big spread, but I have seen that happen. So why are leaders, what are some of the challenges that they're having when it comes to raising the bar and getting to 90% customer satisfaction? These are questions that I ask, and I always get yes, yes, yes. Here, some leaders say, Theo, it seems like it's almost unachievable to achieve 90% customer satisfaction. We're in the high 70s or high 80s, but just to get to 90%, we've been trying and just been unable to achieve that. Others say that, the issue with us is that so often we miss our quarterly incentive, quarterly bonus, and it's not maximized because we can't hit our customer experience or customer satisfaction targets. Our teams just can't hit that. Sometimes it's that we've been able to hit 90%, but we've not been able to sustain it. And I think about how many companies, they are always looking at, let's bring somebody in to do training, which is great, to get everybody revved up and get everyone enthusiastic. But what happens if there's not processes and systems behind that to reinforce the learning is that over time, people kind of scale back to their old habits. And then, of course, the last challenge that leaders have is that they just have in constant pressure from board members, senior leaders, company owners to continue to raise the bar in that customer satisfaction. So those are just some of the challenges that leaders are facing. And I always say to them, you're not alone. A lot of other organizations are out there and leaders facing the same thing, constantly looking at how can we overcome those pressures, not missing, not hitting the target, missing out on a chunk of our quarterly incentive and all of these things. How can we overcome these for the long term? And I ask, what would it mean if you, your organization, your team could rapidly overcome those pressures and challenges and eliminate them forever? Well, it can be done. I'm going to show you what are some of the benefits of when you focus on achieving 90% or higher. And I know I'm preaching to the choir because, both of you are, from knowing you, are people that are really engaged around how to continue to raise the bar with that customer experience. But when we're able to do that, we as an organization have the benefit when we're focusing on achieving 90%, we build a stronger service culture. We have improved communication if we have the right systems and processes in place. It also leads to expanded leadership capacity or leadership effectiveness, improved employee engagement, because employees are more engaged. It leads to higher customer satisfaction and customer loyalty, or what we call an enhanced customer experience. And ultimately, it leads to increased profits. And I know in many companies, it's like profit is a bad word, but I grew up learning that, organizations that are the benchmark, two things they focus on: service and profit dominance. They want to dominate their industry and the product or service that they provide, and that's going to lead to profitability. So profit is not a bad thing if you're chasing it, not by cutting stuff, cutting the services and the products and charging people more, but providing a higher level of service that they want to pay more, they want to recommend, and so on. That's the route to go. So what doesn't work? Those catchy one-size-fits-all programs. I see, and I'm always looking at what are other consulting firms offering that focus on customer experience like I do. And many of them, what they do is they use a one-size-fits-all. They take the logo off of one training program for one company. They put your logo and ta-da, there you go. That's not sustainable. What else is not sustainable is the one-time workshop or webinars that have no substance. That's not sustainable. And, unfortunately, with some companies, when they bring me in to do training, they really just want to check off the box that everybody went through customer satisfaction training and no more, no less. Nothing wrong with that, but you're never going to be able to achieve and sustain 90% with that mindset. Also, what doesn't work is those quick fix programs that only focus on fixing the employees and don't also focus on providing leaders with the tools and resources needed to create sustainable change. So those are some of the things that don't work. So what works? 5 things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So what does work? Identifying where the gaps are in the customer experience journey, having a solid action plan to close those gaps, having processes that are going to ensure that systems and processes that ensure sustainability, having buy-in and support and alignment from your team, and accountability organization-wide. And I run into so many organizations where they have bits and pieces, but it takes all of these things in order to drive excellence. So before I dig a little deeper into those, here is a snapshot of many of the clients that we've worked with on varying levels. With some of these clients, we have done workshops. With some, we have helped them with some supporting processes. And with others, with probably about 50% of them, we have helped them through the entire process of getting to 90% and sustaining it. And what typically happens is that with many of these organizations, the leaders that are involved in the process, they get promoted or they go on to work for another company and do great things again. So the process does work. So let's just quickly walk through the process. And as I'm going to go through 1 and 2 and then, field questions if you have any. To get to 90% and to sustain it, number 1, you've got to identify where are the gaps in the customer, not where are the gaps, but where are we? What's our current state versus our desired state? Where are we today? Specify what we want to achieve. Where are we today versus where we want to be in the future? We got to pinpoint that. Then we have to determine what success should look, sound, and feel like. What should success look like? Elated, excited customers and employees. What should it sound like? The cash register ringing all the time. And what should it feel like? It should feel flawless. So, having to, very simple. This is not complicated stuff. The problem is that most people don't have the patience to work through the process. And also in determining where we are today versus where we want to go, ensuring that whatever our desired state is, that it is aligned with the goals of the company. Here's a visual of what I'm talking about. When we ask the organization, where are you today? They may say, well, today we're at 70% customer satisfaction. So what's the current state look like? Some of the things that they may say, well, we know that our service is inconsistent because we get complaints or this or that. Our systems and processes are not as effective as we'd like them to be. This is leading to inconsistent product or service delivery, mediocre customer satisfaction. We have disengaged employees, so labor turnover is quite high, a lot of complaints, nobody accountable, no teamwork, miscommunication. And for most companies that we work with, if they don't have all 10, they've got at least 5 of these things going on at any one time. So that's where we are today. Where do we want to be? What will success look like? What's the desired state? Well, that we are dominant in our market and dominant in our industry. We provide a world-class customer experience. Our systems and processes are highly effective and sound. We are consistent in our service and product delivery. We have high customer retention and loyalty. We have low labor turnover because employees are fully engaged. Look at this one. We have almost 0 customer complaints. A lot of people say that's not possible. That is, if you have the right systems and processes in place. I have seen it. And, organizations that focus on Lean Six Sigma, quality and process improvement, that's what they're always looking at, is how to bring those defects and complaints down to almost 0. So some of those might be things that customers will say, this is the desired state. This is where we want to be. This is what's going to get us to 90%. So now that we've determined where are we today versus where we want to go, you see, the first problem is that most organizations say, okay, we're at X% customer satisfaction and we want to improve. Let's bring Theo in to train. But they didn't even look at where are we today versus where we want to be, so that we can make sure that the training is customized to hit the target, to help us hit the target of where we want to be. Hopefully that makes sense. The next step is number 2, which is to conduct a customer experience gap analysis. A gap analysis helps you to determine what's inhibiting us from achieving the desired state. World-class domination, high customer loyalty, all those great things. What's inhibiting us? If you're not familiar with the customer experience gap analysis, you probably are. Where are those gaps? We have a great gap analysis process. My book, The 6 Principles of Service Excellence, takes people through what an effective gap analysis should look like. And you complete your gap analysis. If you don't have one, I can send you after this. I'd be happy to send you what I'm using. Highly effective. Matter of fact, before I got on the call, I did some research to see other organizations that do customer experience, what are they providing as far as gap analysis is concerned for just this. And I saw stuff that was all over the place, and I saw more of what is a gap analysis versus where are our gaps. So we do a good job of that. And once you do your customer experience gap analysis, the thing is to use it to review the findings, to either learn or confirm what we need to be focused on and what we need to be working on. So step 1, where are we today versus where we want to go? That's kind of like begin with the end in mind. You got to start with what do we want the end result, the ultimate result to be? Where are the gaps that's preventing us from getting there? The 6 principles of service excellence is what we utilize for our gap analysis. And it's those 6 principles that world-class organizations kind of like abide by. They have a strong vision and mission that's simple. Everybody knows about it. They have a few simple business objectives that every employee understands how their role and their job contributes to the success of the organization. They have standards of excellence or service standards that define what excellence should look, sound, and feel like, so that, again, there's no confusion among employees around what that should be. And to the side is just a visual interpretation of what our gap analysis looks like. Our gap analysis is about 30 questions. Matter of fact, with a gap, with ours, it helps you to determine on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 high, how do we rate ourselves? And if we have a lot of things if at the end of the day, based on the criteria, at the end of the day, we rate ourselves a 3, then we realize, that's a gap. That's something that we need to close that will inhibit us from achieving and sustaining 90% or higher customer satisfaction. And, as a part of this, I've been offering many of my people that have been on the call that if they'd like me to go through a mini gap analysis with them, just to kind of give them an idea of what they need to be working on, I'd be happy to do that. You just need to schedule some time for us to do that. All right. And then again, in looking at a gap analysis, just a visual, because some people like visuals. A gap analysis should help you to determine, again, current state, where are we today? High turnover, disengaged people, bad processes, no accountability, versus where we want to be that will get us to 90%. Fully accountable, ongoing communication, fully engaged employees, customers that love us. So that gap will help you to determine what's inhibiting us from achieving those desired results. So after we've identified current versus desired state, that's step 1. Step 2, do the gap analysis. Step 3 is to devise a sound strategy. And that strategy should not be devised with one person. That should be a group. The service excellence team or customer experience team, customer experience champions. It's a million names. And I think with both of you, we've formulated teams of exceptional employees and leaders that work together on what's our strategy for getting ourselves to 90% or higher. In the strategy, the team needs to identify what are the root causes. If we have high turnover, low accountability, ineffective processes, what's the root cause of that? The best way to get to root cause is to ask why 5 times. That's simple. There are many other more complicated ways, but that's just a simplistic way to get to the root cause. So the team works on that. Any strategy should incorporate the engagement of every person within the organization, from senior leadership to mid-managers, supervisors, and employees. Another issue that many companies have is that when they're working on the strategy, they're only looking at the frontline staff, and they're not looking at how does senior leadership play a role? How do mid-managers play a role? And so on. Everyone has a role in driving excellence. And then when the strategy is devised, there has to be a way to communicate it through ongoing communication. This is how you get into sustainability. Here's another trap that many companies fall into. They figure out the gaps. They figure out what the desired state needs to be. They put a strategy together. They only communicate it to people one time. They think that that's going to be that's going to be enough. I always say, you've heard me say a million times, people have to hear something 21 times to form a habit. So once we get the strategy, there needs to be some form of, or a strategy for how we're going to keep the communication flowing so that getting to 90% stays front of mind for everybody forever. Any questions before I move on? Because I can go on like a tangent.
No, I no questions, just a statement, because as I listen to this, one of the things that is very clear to me is that this is truly about doing it from a much higher level and making sure that it's done from the leadership level. I would certainly be interested in taking this and understanding how do you take this now down to the line level, because it is just kind of high level for line employees, but definitely it starts based on what I'm seeing, and we know that it starts with the leadership team getting their head around it as well.
Yes, thank you for that. Well, that's the next step, is how do you take it down to the next level? You're right on track, Karen. Thank you. George, any questions, any comments?
So, couple maybe observations and questions. I'm not sure, a little bit of both. So, a lot of what you've gone through so far, I do remember us going through a bunch of those things years ago when at my old company. And we, put a lot of the stuff in place. We had service excellence champions and everything like that, but it seemed to die out when leadership changed.
Yes.
So
yes.
that's always a tough one. And then I guess one of the things we always challenged with is people wanted to be communicated to differently, and we could never lock into the best way to communicate with everyone. So that's something I think we struggled with. And then as you had the pillars up there, is there any one of those pillars that's more important than another?
What I think is that when you do a gap analysis, that will help you to determine which is most important for your organization. It's going to depend on the organization, because in any organization, if you look at those pillars, those 6 principles, there's some things that Karen's organization may be stronger in. Your organization may say, oh, that's a gap for us. So it and there may be another area where you're strong. That may be a gap for her. Communication and sustainability may be strong for her. It may be something else. So great question. It depends.
So more about identifying where you might be weak so you know what to work on? Yes,
exactly. Okay. Exactly. And that's the problem, is that a lot of times, that's why sometimes these programs aren't sustainable, because no gap was done to figure out specifically what do we need. Every year we work with a lot of different organizations, and the gap shows that what they need from one organization to another is different, which is why just taking a off-the-shelf training program and utilizing it sometimes does not have the intensity and effectiveness, because we didn't do a gap to figure out how do we customize this so that it fits directly what we need. So that's great. Thank you for that. Anything else before I move forward? One thing I'd like to say is you're so right, George, when you say that when leadership changes, it dies. Because if a new leader comes on and if the customer experience is not their thing, and sometimes that happens, sometimes a new leader comes on and it's not their thing, and they move the organization in a totally different direction. And that's when it is not sustainable, but I can tell you from working with Ritz-Carlton that even after our CEO that started the whole Ritz-Carlton revolution left, the culture was so strong that the new leader coming in, he couldn't but get on the bandwagon. So that can happen. And I love that you said communication is important too. So great points that both of you made. All right. So just a little bit more about the strategy. You can do it simplistically, where you say, what do we need to start, stop, or continue? We've done that with both of you, or with some organizations, we've even done what we call a critical path, where we look at, okay, over the next couple of months, we're going to really focus on moving the pendulum of customer satisfaction. And so we will be looking at Q1, here we are today, and each quarter, what are activities that we're going to have in place? And it's just a visual interpretation so that leaders aren't caught off guard, that they don't know what we're doing next and what they're going to be accountable for next. So that goes with the ongoing communication. And like you said, George, communication is different for different people. Some people need to see it visually. Some people need to hear it. Some people need to see it and hear it and feel it. So it's making sure that all of those ways that people like to be communicated are hit. The next step is and this is where employees come in. Now that we know where the gaps are, we got the strategy, all of that, you're right, Karen, is high level. But now, how are we going to integrate this with employees? What are the supporting processes? And that's what I call them, that we need to have in place so that when we bring this to employees, they've got processes, not just, oh, we want you to smile and be nice, but we've got processes for actions and behaviors that are necessary so that they're consistent. So what the team does is designs and implements the supporting processes. So you have to determine what needs to be developed, who's going to develop it. If you're going to implement anything new, it needs to be piloted first and then refined, of course, as we know, before you roll it out to the masses, just so that when we roll it out, it's as close to perfect as possible. The worst thing you can do is roll out a new process or an existing process again, and it's flawed because we didn't test it out first. When we talk about supporting processes, this gets to employees. The gap will show things like in the customer experience, where are gaps? Well, we're inconsistent in our telephone etiquette. We are inconsistent in service recovery and how we resolve problematic issues. We're inconsistent in the processes that we put in place to ensure that the customer has a flawless experience. We're inconsistent in our verbiage. So there are a number of things. The gap will help us to determine all of that. We've all been through that before. And so we're designing the processes so as we flow down to employees, we'll have good processes in place for them to follow. With that said, designing the processes, telephone etiquette, standards of excellence, daily communication, daily team huddles. Daily team huddles are those daily pre-shift meetings that you have with the team to ensure that everybody's on track with what's expected for today and to remind people of the purpose of their work, which is to provide a world-class experience for the customer, the patient, whatever you call your customer or client. And we help organizations put stuff together like that. Sometimes it's just stuff that needs to be refined that you already have. Sometimes it's stuff that needs to be just start all over again, or something that needs to be customized. We can help with that. So that in a nutshell, at a high level, these are the tools. It could even be training. What training needs to happen for employees? And we help with how to put all that training together, or, with looking at what training do you have now that we can make some tweaks to and reuse. I'm always in favor of, if we got some great things that we've had in the past that we can use, let's do that. And after that, then the next thing is we implement those processes, which is training, along with a lot of other processes that along the way, not all at one time to barrage people with too much, but along the way, we've got a timeline of when we want to integrate telephone etiquette, when we want to integrate professional presence, verbiage, training, service recovery, all of those things. And we give it a break, so that we can evaluate how is everything working, what's not working, what's hindered, what needs to be improved. And did we achieve our desired goal? If our desired goal was to achieve 90%, and sustain it, have we been able to do that? If we have, who should we be recognizing? Another thing, we get so caught up, we move on to the next thing. So people need to be recognized. And then looking at what's next. Both of you know that creating a culture of excellence is a journey. It's not a destination. And that as soon as you get your processes and everything to a place where you're capable of creating and sustaining that level of excellence that gets you to 90% customer satisfaction. As soon as you get there, what does the competition do? They look at how they can catch up. They look at stealing maybe some things that you do. Sometimes they're little simple things, nuances that they get a hold of that you're doing, and then they start doing that. And before you know it, they've caught up. So it's a journey, and we have to have that mindset with employees that it's always a journey. Here's just a couple of customers that have been able to achieve this 90% and sustain it. This is Joanne Miller, and we've worked with her through 2 hospitals, and now she's at her 3rd hospital. And like I say, people kind of like take the processes as they go. We worked with her with Johns Hopkins, their Sibley Memorial Hospital in Chevy Chase, Virginia. And so when we first worked with her, we started with just the frontline non-clinical staff. And then when we moved to her next hospital, she had more of a sphere of influence where we did the full getting to 90%. They did extremely well. That was with Jupiter Medical Center. And now she's on to someplace else. She's now in Lake Tahoe. Here is Misty Miller, not to be related. The ladies are not related, but Misty, again, we worked with her with one senior living organization, management company that's in Dallas, Texas. And they did the full getting to 90%. It took them about 12 months. They were running somewhere in the 70 percentile of resident satisfaction. They were able to get it up to 90% and sustain it. And this kind of goes to what George said. When the CEO left, the new CEO had a whole new, he was just on a whole different tangent. But you know what? The good thing, they sold the company, but they had great recognition, because they became a benchmark in the industry. And with Misty, we worked with her with one organization, and then we worked with her with Civitas, which is another world-class senior living organization. What I love about what she says is that, when we work with them, it's not a one-size-fits-all, but that we work at looking at what are the unique strengths and coming up with a comprehensive plan to help them. So we worked with them year before last with Civitas. Hadn't worked with anybody in 2020 just because of COVID. But, we were able to do some great things. We've got a podcast. I'm going to be a guest on their podcast on Friday. They're going to be talking about the sustainability of some of the things that they've done to increase or elevate the resident experience. And then one more customer success story. This is Hank with Hamilton Jewelers. And Karen, you met him when we first met. Every year we do a leadership session with them. He has a consortium of luxury jewelers, and we work with them, each organization, to help them to look at, they compete on the level with Tiffany's jewelers. So we were helping this consortium on how to, when you're competing with Tiffany's jewelers, you've got to have a heck of a lot of really good, really great product and knock yourself off service. So we work with them, and they've been doing so many great things in the industry, maintaining 90% and higher and so on. So those are just a few of the organizations that we've worked with. What questions do you have?
It's interesting because you have the frequently asked questions up there. And the first one is, how long does this process really take? For me, it is.
Okay, everybody's been asking that, so I went ahead and threw that up there. And it depends on where you are and the amount of diligence that you want to, the amount of effort. If you're already, some companies, they're like at 87%. So, but it could still be hard to just move up those 3 percentage points. But it may only take them maybe 5 to 6 months. For an organization that's maybe some way where low 80s or whatever, it might take a year. That doesn't mean you have to work with me for a year, but it might take a year because you can't throw everything, the whole baby in bathwater at the whole thing at one time. So, it depends on typically 6 to 12 months, but it depends on how close the organization is to getting to 90% and how committed they are. Are they 100% committed? We're going to do whatever it takes. Well, if you're going to do whatever it takes and you're 100%, you get there a lot quicker. All right. How do you get leaders engaged? People are like, this sounds good, but I can tell you right now, our leaders are not going to be, they are stressed already. They have too much to do already. How do we get them engaged? You just make sure that they're a part of the process from the very beginning to the end. You have an ear to listen to where their pain is coming from, employee retention, morale, this, that, and you make sure that that's incorporated as a part of the process. George, any questions? Or Karen, any other questions?
No, this was very, very good. And certainly looking at some of the things that I know that we've been trying to achieve, I can see perhaps some of the reasons why we did not, based on what I saw today. So no questions at all. Great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, George.
Yeah, I think I'm all set, Theo. I mean, I just actually put together some of the pieces that I missed back before all the training and how it was supposed to work. And I think it is important, like you said, making sure your leaders are involved and engaged. And I think it, ties back to that accountability piece.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, realistically,
Yeah.
they're the ones that have to drive it. They're the ones that are going to have those huddles. They're the ones that are going to kind of keep it going, doing the praising as well.
Yes.
And establishing that culture. And I think, there were still some people doing it, but some people it's stopped doing some of that stuff.
Yeah. I love that I have you two on the call because you've been through this process with me and you've seen how it can be tremendously successful. You've also, but the main thing of this too is to help us to determine where our gaps are, because so many people say, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but then you realize sometimes, oh, but I'm not doing this, or maybe we need to do so and so with just a little bit more rigor. So it can be simple, but it can be complicated. It's got a lot of moving pieces. But, the first, as Karen stated, the front part is the leadership part, getting them aligned and defining what do we want? What should it look like? What's the strategy? And then the second part is getting employees buy-in, aligned, getting them on board. And then after that, it's how do we having good processes in place to sustain it. And a lot of times for companies, they already have the processes. It's just that, oh, I forgot. We used to do this back in 1983. We stopped doing it because, we got a new leader or this or that. Maybe we need to bring that back. So we notice a lot of times, a lot of stuff like that. As I get ready to close, I always ask people, based on what we talked about, what are you going to start, stop, or continue? So I'll share with you what some people have said on the last couple of sessions. Some have said, I need to go back and read your book. I need to look at this 5 steps, look at the handout again. Some have said, well, we need to have you come and help us. But this is the part, what do leaders need to stop doing? Some leaders say, wow, I need to stop thinking this doesn't apply to me because I'm in accounting or I'm in an area that I don't have direct contact with, front-facing contact with the customer. But you know what? What I do is equally as important when it comes to getting to 90%. Some people have said, I need to stop ignoring the gaps that are inhibiting us from having sustainable change. And what most people want to continue doing is being a lifelong learner, committed to change, and being an advocate for stuff like this. Anything
just about everybody has a customer.
Say that again. Yes.
Just about everyone has a customer.
Absolutely. So true. So as I close, this is twofold. One is to kind of tell people, here's what we've done over the last 17 years, and that 50% of our clients, and that might not seem like a lot, but those are the ones that put full rigor into this, that decided we're going in full Monty. They've achieved it. The other 50% have said, we're not ready yet. We don't have the budget. We're just bringing on a new CEO. So some others were not ready, or they're like, oh, all I want to do is just have people attend training. But if this is something that you're interested in down the road and continuing, I do have a mastermind group. And with the mastermind group, I've got one going on right now. We started in October and we will finish up in April. The next mastermind group starts probably in April. That'll be here in no time. But it's a group of like-minded leaders that within their organization want to know how to get to 90% customer satisfaction. It's a membership program. And with that mastermind group, you get me as a consultant. I help you with customizing your training, the daily team huddles, the online learning, just a million things, executive coaching for your leaders to coach them through what they need to do. So just something that I want people to keep front of mind, because sometimes people are like, wow, that was short, but that was a whole lot. We can't do that. You have help. So help is on the way. That's what Theo is here for. So if that's something that you might be interested in, also when you become a member of that, you get access to all of the tools and resources that we have. They're available electronic. They're available hard copy, all of that great stuff. But, I enjoy what I do. If I won the lottery, I'd continue doing this. I would do it absolutely for free. But that, if this is a journey that you want to go on, that I'd love to help you in this journey and work with you from start to finish, from determining what's our vision, what's our desired state, where are our gaps, what's our strategy going to be, how do we get employees engaged, how are we going to come up with all these tools and resources for our leaders. I can help you with all of that good stuff. So that's what's worked for me. Again, identifying where we want to be, doing our gap analysis, having a strategy to close those gaps, designing those supporting processes. That's the only way you're going to have sustainability. Daily team huddles, a good new employee orientation process, good systems and processes, all of that stuff, and then celebrating at the end. So I'd like to say thank you so much for your time. If there's anything that I can do to help you, you know exactly how to reach me. I think you've got my email address and so on, but that's my email address. That's my website. I've been real active in YouTube. So almost everything I talk about, I do a YouTube video for. So there's lots of good resources out there. But if I can be of any additional help, please do give me a call, send me an email. It would be my pleasure to help. And, send me an email if you have any questions after this on anything else that I can help you with. All right?
Theo, I would assume now, just because of our state, that most of this is being done virtually.
Yes, all of it's being done virtually right now. Yeah. And, eventually, once everybody's got herd immunity and vaccinations and all that great stuff, we'll take the show back on the road. But yeah, everything can certainly be, that's the benefit of, if anything, of the pandemic is realizing how effective you can still be virtually. All right. Well, thank you so much, George. And thank you so much, Karen. Great to visit with you again. Have a wonderful day.